Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Spiritual Fitness with your host, Vaishishika Prabhu, a veteran Bhakti yogi, former monk, author, and myself, JM. Spiritual Fitness is a program dedicated to exploring the timeless text and practices of Bhakti Yoga for people who want wisdom in their daily life. We have more than close to 20 people on Zoom and more than 50 people on Facebook. I have got Bharat assisting me managing social media today. Good afternoon, Vaishika Prabhu. Welcome.
Oh, thanks, JM. It's so nice to be back here in this refuge, little oasis where we can absorb ourselves for an hour or so in some introspection and matters of the heart. And thanks, Bart, for taking care of all the technical stuff. And my greetings to everybody who's joined us today. Glad to see you back, and thank you very much for joining as usual. It's really good to be here with you. Today, I want to start by showing you a kanji that I learned when I was learning Japanese. And kanji is a pictograph, originates from the Chinese language. There are three alphabets in Japanese. Kanji, which uses these Chinese pictograph. There's hiragana, which is the symbol you see on the right for ru. And then there's katakana, which is a phonetical spelling of foreign words, because there are a lot of foreign words in Japanese, because there's been a mixing of cultures over the years for different people coming there for trading and so forth. So this particular kanji caught my eye many years ago. This is the Japanese kanji for trouble. And you might notice that the pictograph abbreviates that in the form of this picture by showing a tree in a box. And who would like to say what about that spells trouble? Just intuitively.
There's some sword kind of a symbol. I don't know if that has anything to do with trouble.
What's that?
The sword kind of thing. I mean, it looks like a sword coming out.
Yeah. But I mean, what's the problem with the tree in a box anyway?
It can't grow.
Why can't it grow?
Because it has a limited amount of soil in the box.
Any other limits?
Light.
Yeah. And we're assuming that the box is closed off to the light, right? I mean, does any other thoughts? A tree can't fit in a box, Avantika said. And Nicole said, is it upside down? No, the kanji is right side up. Or is the tree upside down? No, it's there. It's just confined. I mean, that's the idea, the sense of the kanji. Constricting, yes. Kathleen said constricting. So it's many of these kanjis. VP says no room to grow. Yeah, no room to grow. So this word is komaru. Komaru means trouble. It means that you're feeling some trouble, difficulty, anguish, and so forth. And I related that, of course, to the teachings of the East, in which talk about how each one of us is like a tree, or an evergreen tree. In fact, we have an inexhaustible source of energy. However, when we're embodied, and that's that the description of the particular body we have now is very box-like. Although it offers us some facility, especially the human body, there's a way in which it's also described as delimiting our actual potential nature. So let's do just a little introspection to start, because it's one of the ways that we can get centered and also tap into the heart center where, according to the ancient Vedas, the essence of who we are exists. So if you'll just sit up a little bit straighter than you were a second ago, and then close your eyes and relax, but focus. And bring your awareness, which is your main asset in life. Your volition means that you get to choose where to place your awareness. Isn't that amazing? You can decide, I'm going to place my awareness right now on my breath. Stay alert in your awareness and notice that you're being nourished by your breath. And there's a nourishing power that's beyond us. This is called Vishvambar, that which nourishes us at every second. There is a nourisher and the nourished. I'm being nourished. There's a higher power, Vishvambar, who's nourishing me. And the breath is the life force. I can take it for granted, but it's a gift. The gift that keeps my body, which is also a gift, a kind of vehicle for me to go on the journey that I'm on. It's being sustained by this fuel, rarefied fuel. So notice your breath and feel gratitude. And next, put your attention on the region of your heart. The heart is the seat of our power, our potential. Because we, as an evergreen tree, exist within the chakra of the heart, the seat of all consciousness that then expands throughout the body. And as you're aware of your heart and you're aware of your body, notice that you are sitting within a body. The body is a biomechanical vehicle with the most advanced technology. We're the driver. And breathe and keep your awareness in the region of your heart, which is the seat of your emotions also, the driver of this body within the heart. and keeping your focus, see if you can notice any of the emotions that are there within the heart. Oftentimes, we express our emotions as being visceral. Something is heartfelt. Or we might say, my heart wasn't in it. And there's a story my teacher used to tell about a boy who received a gift of a very rare bird from his grandfather. When his grandfather passed away, he left it to him, along with some money. And the boy bought the bird a golden cage. And every day he'd come in and polish the cage. And every day the bird would say, "Please feed me." And the boy polished the cage harder, and it became shinier. And one day the bird expired. The story is a reminder that we're the bird within the cage of the body. No matter how much I attend to my body, or even to the mind, without feeding the bird, I can never feel completely whole or satisfied. And now we'll do one mantra as we're residing within the chakra of the heart, the center of emotion, the highest emotion, love, emanates from the heart. Together we can say, behind closed mics, the mantra, which is one syllable, Om. I'll do it 3 times, and please notice how it resonates in the heart. And now, transfer your breath and your awareness back to your breath. And slowly open your eyes. You can rub your hands together, get some friction, and come back into the external world. And welcome back. So this kind of introspection is mentioned in the yogic literatures to be helpful and getting a perspective of who we are, and from that position, realizing where the seat of power is in our lives, what's actually driving us, is our own awareness, our own, where we choose to put our awareness. And also that by recognizing the seat of power within ourselves, which is the heart, we can harness that power. This is called Shraddha. In Sanskrit, Shrad means the heart, and Da is an active verb. It means where you place something. And so Shraddha means what you put your heart into. Because we are extremely subtle beings. We're sentient. A sentient being is superior to matter. And therefore we can move matter with our intention and the way we organize that intention. So the Shraddha, or the way we invest, what we invest our heart into, will begin to manifest in our lives. It's the direction that we'll go. And therefore, there are several directions given in the yoga literatures about carefully investing our heart in those objects that are worthy of that investment, and don't waste it. So when we're able to introspect and also notice that we're different from the body, there's an opportunity to see that actually we're not the box. And we can, through the process of meditation and bhakti yoga and mantra meditation, we can peek outside the box. And even with this, a little glimpse, being able to see that the fact that I'm not this body, there's a very powerful impetus that we can gain for working in a way that is most beneficial for us. I had a friend who had a stroke many, many years ago. And he told me afterwards what it was like. He recovered from it, but he told me he was a bodybuilder and he was taking some kind of a stimulant that caused him to stroke. And he said that he was in that state for several hours, but he was fully conscious. The state was that his senses were closed down, and he was aware that he was within his body, but he couldn't do anything with the senses. He couldn't see, or his ears were not functioning properly. He couldn't move his limbs. But he said he was very much aware that he was trapped inside. And when I heard that, I was relating it to the descriptions in the Vedic literatures about how we are within this container, the box-like body. And one of the objectives in the yogic teachings is to become aware where we are and how we're situated. And so when he came out of he was able to recover from the stroke, he was very appreciative of the fact that he had volition. He was able to turn his attention, use where he wanted it to go. He was able to see again, the light was coming in. And this is something that's easy to take for granted. I just perhaps wake up in the morning and think, I got to go to work. And then I go to bed at night and just think, oh, this is just some normal process. But when we have the perspective that actually I'm residing within the body, I'm riding around in a body, and it's meant for a particular purpose, and I can develop my awareness through this particular body that I have now, then the sense of gratitude increases, and also our effectiveness increases. And so I would just like to hear from anybody before I go into some of the other practical matters about the teachings of yoga that show how to become more aware of our existence within the body and how to peek outside the body. If you've had any experience of noticing how you're a non-material entity, non-neural, non-chemical, residing within a body, have you ever had a glimpse of that? And if so, what was it like? I hope that's not too personal a question to ask or challenging, but I just figured I'd take a risk and ask if you've had that, if you've had any glimpses of that. Or maybe you do all the time. JM, you're going to have to prime the pump here.
I was just thinking, like when doing the meditation, which we start off very nicely. Slowly, at times, the senses shut down. Mentioned, like we are trying to focus on our breath and heart, and everything else slowly shut down. But even in that, there is still an active awareness or observation that goes in. So I was trying to extrapolate what the other person would be thinking when he was stuck in a stroke, and but he was fully aware. So just trying to correlate and understand how, what kind of thinking and feeling that he would have been going through at that time.
Yeah, I like the word you use, observation. And oftentimes when I'm thinking about my life situation or just observing or being in my body, I'm not aware, I'm not observing the body or my life situation. I'm more or less absorbed in it. And I think this is me. I am this body and I am my life situation. But through observation, one of the practices we've been cultivating, stepping back a few inches even, and looking and seeing, I can notice my thoughts. I can notice my body. I can notice my emotions. And I can objectify them. I can objectify my life situation as if I'm just passing through, and I am, and notice that I'm a witness. I'm the observer, and I'm different from that. And this is one of the tenets of thoughtfulness, of mindfulness, of meditation, actually.
If anyone has any thoughts, you can unmute yourself and ask questions or share reflection.
Yeah, questions can be hard, but if you have them, it'll definitely heat things up. And then if you have any just reflections from anything that's happened so far, you can put them down in the chat box, or you can take a huge risk and go on camera or stay off camera and ask. I could tell Sudden is about to say
Sure.
something.
Well, yes, I can definitely ask a question. I wondered, if so we're describing what JM was talking about, which was around the idea of, this movie screen, and we can observe and become very aware of how all our functions, what we're seeing, what we're hearing. I kind of, the context I see is as a seer and the seen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I was wondering, can you explore the idea of what the subconscious is then? Like, because there seems to be two levels inside when we're meditating, and is that the subconscious or what?
Yes. And this Yoga Sutras, which is really the psychology of yoga, at least the first two sections, there's three main sections in the Yoga Sutras, talks about the psychology of yoga and the workings of the mind. And the mind is, to give a modern example, very much like a cloud. that is not a fluffy white cloud, but the cloud where you keep all kinds of information. I have really no idea how they work exactly, except that it's subtle energy, and there's a way in which information is stored in there. It can come out at various times. So the mind takes in impressions from the vrittis, or from the indriyas or the senses. We have these openings on our body through which information flows in, and it gets imprinted upon the mind. Sometimes it's described as if you're walking on wet sand. And if you see behind you, when you walk down the wet sand, there's some footprints there. Imagine if you walk over that 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 times. Then you'll notice that it's got millions of impressions. So the mind itself is impressed by the vrittis, or the turnings that are created by the sense impressions that come into our mind. And these leave what's also called samskars, which is kind of like a photographic image. Every time something comes in, you hear something. The other day I heard an advertising jingle from my childhood. It was an audio impression that just came out, and it's imprinted in there somewhere. And similarly, everything gets imprinted. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about the way in which we are predisposed towards certain kinds of objects in this world. I like some things, I don't like other things, because of the way our mind has been impressed over time. And therefore we have predisposition. And so this subconscious actually is driving us, according to yoga philosophy, according to Freud also, and other psychological people who analyze things psychologically. There's a way in which there are these impressions, and the aggregate of those impressions actually influence us very deeply. How do they influence us? Especially through what's called vivek, or our discrimination. So when we go to make a decision, I like this, I don't like that, it's really driven by our exposure to previous impressions. So the yogi actually purifies the vivek, or the discrimination, so that he or she is coming from a higher level of observation. And that's one of the ways in which yoga becomes effective, is through the discriminating power, and noticing that the mind is churning in different ways and offering different solutions or desires. And this is in a verse in the Bhagavad Gita in which Krishna says, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parta manogatan atman yeva manatushta stita pragnasta dochite. It's in response to his student Arjuna's question about what's the symptom of somebody who's fixed in consciousness. And that answer, he says, stita, which means fixed, pragnasta dochite. It is said that a person is fixed in consciousness when he or she, prajahati yada kaman, doesn't feel obligated to accept all of the various suggestions that the mind gives. Prajahati means to actually to be able to restrain oneself, or to pull back from. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parta manogatan. And it says the mind is constantly offering these because of the previous impressions that it's imprinted upon itself, and they repeat and repeat. And then he says, Atman yeva manatushta. Instead of absorbing oneself in that constant offering of the mind that do this, try that, taste this, instead, Atman yeva manatushta, the person who's fixed in consciousness, has a taste for his or her own consciousness. Consciousness can become aware of consciousness because that's what it does. It becomes aware of things. So interestingly, the yoga literature say you can become aware of yourself. And yourself is not your mind, and yourself is also not your body, nor is it even your intelligence, called the buddhi. These are subtle elements like software, but we are the operator behind that. So when one becomes aware of oneself as the operator, as the seer, as the witness, and sees oneself as separate from these things, one can actually enjoy inner happiness. Oftentimes people say happiness comes from within. And they said, oh, yeah, sure, that sounds good. But how do we tap into that? It's there. We are the being aware of who we actually are is the source of happiness. And being objectifying the mind and the body and so forth, which is a constant source of turbulence because it's always changing, whereas we're not, is very helpful in developing this state of steadiness. Does that help?
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you
for
very
the
much.
question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I was just, based on what you mentioned, I was just thinking of the impression and how it comes back. Like sometimes when I wake up in the morning, my children, they're playing mantra music. Like they just, in the morning, they get up and just pull up the drums and harmonium and start playing. And I remember a couple of days I observed that when I'm going to sleep that night, and when I'm trying to go to sleep, that whatever I heard first in the morning, that came back up without me trying for it. And I said, okay, next time I told my kids, do that every day because I want, when I go to sleep, I want to have that coming back up. So yeah, I was just thinking how it has a way of coming back to you later without you wanting for it because the impressions were created.
Yes. And therefore, what we put into these ears ends up there in our consciousness and whatever impressions we take in. So it's one of the principles of yoga to be careful about what we take in because that will have an effect. It has consequences.
Bharat just posted a message from Facebook from Namrata. She mentions that she recently had the experience of hearing her heartbeat in the ear. And it gave a sense that I'm inside a machine which is switched on, just like one is next to a computer or inside a server room. And sometimes you hear a machine running inside the computer, kind of.
Yeah. I think if you're looking for that, it can be very interesting. Sometimes it can be a little eerie also. If I'm absorbed in thinking I am my body and I don't want to know that I'm not. if I hear such sounds, I might like forget that. I don't want to hear it. But for an observer, somebody who's actually introspective, noticing, like Namrata is noticing that heartbeat, you can hear the pulse in your ear, and you think, oh, right, there's something separate that's beating within me. There's a pump going. I'm watching it. Yes, very good. Thank you for sharing that. That's easily relatable.
And Sheila just posted, same as the Navajo culture, we have to be careful what we see and hear, and also what we put into the world too.
Yes, such a nice point. And those who are more conscious of the, like the spiritual side of life, may also be careful about how they move about, and very naturally, there's a way in which somebody who's aware of one's higher consciousness and also cleaning up one's the junk that's floating around will also be naturally careful about putting junk into the external environment. In fact, pollution starts from within and it goes to the outside world. From the polluted heart, then the planet gets polluted also. Somebody asked a couple of weeks ago if the development of this connection we have with our higher conscious source also means that we become better stewards of the earth, and very much so, because there's a sense of its sacredness and interconnectedness. And when I'm not connected with myself, I'm also not connected with the rest of the world, because it all comes from the same original conscious source. Everything does. And there's a way in which, as you're describing here, Sheila, in the Navajo culture, there was an awareness of that, of what I spoke about before, Vishwambar. There's a nourishing a spirit behind nature that's always there. It's all pervading. And if one's aware of that, then one's careful what one puts into the world. One treats it as it in its right place, in that is that it is sacred.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Sheila.
You're welcome. I had a question. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just coming up for me. There has been times where I'm like, I remember one time being at a conference, and I'm in the room and I'm talking with people. Then all of a sudden, I feel like I'm actually observing what I'm doing, and it kind of feels like, where did I go? And I'm like looking and experiencing the situation from like afar, and that's happened a few times to me. And I'm like, what's going on there? Because I'm not afraid. It's just like, I'm not supposed to be here almost. Like, I feel like I'm not supposed to be where I'm at. It's a very strange feeling to me.
Is it strange? Do you feel it's really strange in the sense that it's abnormal? Or do you feel that it's more of an alignment with another kind of reality? Or can you unpack that idea of it being strange?
It's like, I wonder, like, do other people experience what I'm experiencing? I feel like it's out of the norm. Like, I'm not connected to what's happening right now, but I am connected because I'm observing it.
Yeah. Well, just from the context of the Vedic literature's teachings of yoga and so forth, there's a way in which I become so used to identifying with my body and my life situation that I take that as normal. And when there's when I deliberately step back from that, it seems to be something wonderful, and it is. Just the objectivity gives me a little relief, actually, and alignment with reality. And sometimes when it just happens, because you are a conscious being, and there's a way that you might just, in some circumstances, spontaneously observe, like, well, I'm just watching this. It's unfolding. I'm watching this person, Sheila. She's talking at this conference, and I'm watching her because our identity, according to the like the Yoga Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, our identity is kind of an assumed identity, and we have an identity beyond just the one that we have a name tag slapped onto. Like, have you ever been on a situation you come into a conference and you have to put your name on a tag, and then you think about that objectively? It's like, well, who am I really? What name am I going to put here? Or a lot of times, like in the old days before there was global entry, where I don't have to fill out any paperwork, but I'd be flying to different countries, and then they'd ask questions. Who are you, and what's your occupation? And I was thinking, what is my occupation anyway? And who am I really? So those kind of spontaneous observations of our nature are kind of, a glimpse of reality. That is sort of peeking outside the box. And the yogic lifestyle, yeah.
Because I want to laugh almost, like, this means nothing, what I'm doing. It's like I want to laugh at it because, oh, we're here and it's all this important stuff, but really it's not important. And I kind of want to laugh at myself in that moment. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like, does this really matter right now at this point in time? And I kind of laugh about it. Like, it doesn't matter.
I think you're explaining it quite well. My teacher once, in one of his literatures, he wrote that the whole world is going on as a colossal hoax. I'm not talking about, there's just existentially, I'm not talking about conspiracy theories or it's things like that. I'm talking about the whole framework of the way I accept this. And I mean, that one of the reasons that the movie The Matrix was very popular, I think, is because there was sort of this alternative reality, and people could relate to it and go, yeah, right. Actually, there is something else going on here that's beyond just what everyone accepts. And my one of my colleagues who wrote a very successful book recently called hiding an unnatural happiness. And in that, he describes how, I think it's in that book, in a lot of his lectures, he talks about how people have subscribed to to mass consensual trance. That, let's all agree that this is normal. and then as it's become popular now, talking about the new normal, and there's another new normal, and so forth like that. But according to the yogic perspective, what's normal is reality. And reality is that actually we're sentient. We're not material. We don't die. And we're trees in a box right now. And that causes trouble when I identify with the frame and I say, oh, this is me. Because actually we have, the Vedas say something startling. Asango hyayam purushaha. Sanskrit means, sango means connection, and asango means no connection. Asango hyayam purusha means you as the sentient being, you don't have any true connection to this world. We're really just passing through. What else do you have there, JM?
We have there are two more comments. One is from, or rather three. Wow, it's coming in nice. Let me read one at a time. First from Jai Kalina. It seems the more stressed I am, I'm also less objective, centered, or willing to be a universal awareness. How can we have a priority on the mundane worldly things at the same time we relinquish ownership of self?
Oh, well, that's a really good question. It's very practical. One of my friends, another colleague, actually works for the government, and he's a mediator. And he's trained in mediation, so he has conflict resolution and all these kinds of things. So he's done a couple seminars that I attended, and they were really good. And one of them showed a graph in which the more emotionally excited you get about a particular incident, then the less objective you become. And that, it's like an inverse graph relationship that you can see. And so when we're overrun by certain kinds of lower emotions that dominate us, then it's a lot harder to become objective. Now, when you do become objective and you realize that actually I'm not my body, I'm not my mind either, and you're situated in that observation, it doesn't mean that you become dysfunctional. It's quite the opposite. Dysfunctional meaning that you became antisocial or asocial, or that, you're a bumbling fool now, you can't work in the world. Quite the opposite, actually. It's easier, and you become more effective. You might notice that oftentimes when you're resolute and you're working on a problem and you're able to be methodical but dispassionate, you're far more effective than when you're overcome by some emotion. Or just if you're so attached to the result, when you're working on something that you can't see beyond that, it's very hard to do it well. Last night in a class, JM was telling about a famous athlete in India. I don't know what sport. I guess it's cricket.
Cricket,
Is
yeah.
it?
Cricket
Which
is Dhoni, yeah.
That's another example of objectivity. So when I went to Australia the first time, my friend said, you got to go to a cricket match. And I said, okay, if that's what I have to do when I'm here in Australia, that's what I have to do. So he took me to a cricket match, and I sat there and watched, and I had no idea what was going on. So it just seemed like a bunch of men, in funny suits playing a funny game. Whereas if you took me to a baseball game, which I grew up with, then I'd be more absorbed in it, which kind of, proves that point about, how we become attached to a particular perspective and identify with it. But he told about a particular athlete who was put in circumstances, in losing circumstances on a losing team, but he just went in and did his job. And because he was dispassionate about the way he was playing, tell me if I'm messing the story up, Jam,
No.
he turned the whole team around. Because he's, sometimes when you've already lost, you can really be objective because you're like, I might as well just do my duty. I'm not going to win anyway. So he turned the whole team around, actually. It became a phenomenon. and that's a principle, right? JM, you're on mute.
Yeah. One ball at a time, or one mantra at a time.
Yeah, one mantra at a time, one ball at a time. Yeah, exactly. Nice. What else, JM? What else?
We have Kathleen Cohen, who says, "Not sure if any of you have seen the Bill Murray stories, but Bill has a saying that he has ad-libbed into a few movies he has done, and it says, it just doesn't matter."
Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Is it
Yes.
Murray or?
Murray, yeah.
Yeah. He has a saying is, Kathleen, can you say more about that?
There.
Yeah, sorry, I was unmuting myself.
No problem. Good to hear you.
Thank you. Likewise, there's a documentary called The Bill Murray Stories, and there's a lot of stories from across the country where Bill will sneak up on people and jump into their photos, or show up at a college party and just start doing someone's dishes, or or like go into a men's bathroom while someone's going to the bathroom and cover their eyes and whisper in their ears, "No one will ever believe you." He does these like crazy things where he just shows up at people's houses and will be a roadie for a band and show up at a college party, just all these random things. And there's a saying that he has ad-libbed into a lot of his movies. It's actually quite a big scene in Meatballs, and he's got it in what is the one with the gopher, the golf, Caddyshack, and some other ones. Right. And he just it just doesn't matter. And when in the scene in Meatballs, they're talking about winning or losing, and he's supposed to be pepping up the team to win this race or whatever. And he just the whole team starts chanting, "It just doesn't matter. It just, like, we win, we lose, it just doesn't matter." So it's kind of a funny scene where instead of like pepping up the team, he's got them all chanting, "It just doesn't matter." And he's kind of subscribes to that, that he has a lot of random behaviors, just bringing random joy to people and doing funny things just to bring light to someone's life and give them a story to tell. But he sneaks that in there. They say that in his movies, he'll ad-lib that into several of the movies, whether it's a big scene or whether it's something where he slips it in. But it's one of those phrases that he slips into a lot of the movies that he does, ad-libs it in.
Thank you for that point. It's very practical too. And if I understand you correctly, that fits into that slot. We're talking about objectivity, because there's a way, like one of my, another friend of mine who's a writer has written about how matter doesn't matter until we actually glance upon it. I mean, matter is inert and we're not. So it only actually matters to us when we look at it and we say, "That's mine. I need this," and so forth. And if we don't invest our consciousness in it, then matter just stays the way it is. And so when we say it just doesn't matter, if you even think about the terminology, it doesn't matter, then we're not animating it, we're not moving it by claiming it. And so that's actually one of the main themes of the Bhagavad Gita. Karmanye Vadika. If you go to an Indian anywhere and say, "What's the Bhagavad Gita about?" and they all know, they don't know the whole Bhagavad Gita, but they know this verse. 7 out of 700 verses.
And he studied that too. So
he studied Gita, right? Yeah,
yes.
he's a real thinker, right? A philosopher. It says the verse says that work, but don't be attached to the fruit. Don't go for that. Go service for service. While you're doing your work, do it in the moment, in the pragmatic present, and be aware of the fact that you're doing this for a higher cause. And when you're doing that, which is really, as I said, the whole theme of the Bhagavad Gita, whatever work you're doing, if you're aware of that principle, then you become very objective. And in the Gita, the hero of the Gita is a warrior, and he goes and fights the war, which previously he wasn't going to do, but he went to do his duty to fight for justice in this case, and he did it in a detached way because he knew that he wasn't fighting it for himself. It was for a higher principle. Thank you very much, Kathleen. That was great. JM, any other points on the board?
Narmata again followed up, when we are floating in and out of a dream, the experience can be unsettling but revealing.
Yes, there are liminal states. My friend Matthew, who was a paramedic for 20 years, he used to come to my regular programs that I used to hold here in Burlingame many years ago. And, he'd always have a fresh story about, somebody he saved or wasn't able to save. And so many times there were people who he talked to afterwards, after horrendous accidents, and they would tell him about out-of-body experiences. But we can, we may notice these ourselves. Sleep itself is an interesting state, and it's mentioned in the Vedas about how there are three main categories of consciousness. There's sleeping, waking, and then sleep without dreaming. Did I name four there? Sleep, awakened, sleeping with dreams, sleeping without dreams, and awakened consciousness. So in our normal course of 24 hours, we're going through various different stages. And when we're in a dream state, we're accepting that as real. In other words, I'm working, and then the boss comes in and says, "You're fired." And then I start panicking, and then I wake up and I go, I'm not fired. But why did I accept that? Because that's what I'm doing when I'm in this kind of covered consciousness, non-objective consciousness. Okay, so a couple more points, and that is that one of the aspects of yoga is to notice promissory materialism, it's called. Promissory means there's something in it for me, and there's this hope that I'll get something out of it. And I take a recommended course of action thinking I'm going to get a particular result, and then even if it comes, it may be different than what I thought, or it may not come at all. So the process of working, as I said, for service, for a higher cause, gives one that kind of perspective and ability to objectify rather than working in an attached way. And this is called karma yoga. You're using your work or your karma for a higher cause. And when you do that, you can come to that stage. And there are also principles of yoga that one can integrate into one's life, and they have to do with body and the mind and the essential attending to the bird within the cage, the spiritual aspect of ourselves, or I should say we are the spirit, but we're within these other elements. We're engaged within these elements. And so there are ways in which to attend to these various aspects of our life so that we become more aware in a steady way of our nature. And that comes out in our 21-day fitness challenge, which we conceived of as a way to emulate the teachings of yoga that have to do with body, mind, and spirit. And those kinds of, that 21-day fitness challenge, which a lot of people have signed up for now, is on a website. It's on one of my websites, right, JM?
Yes, it is.
It's my name.com, right?
Yes, I can quickly show it to you if you want.
And there you can try out this 21-day fitness challenge, and it gives you some basic principles, parameters throughout the day that keep you aware and conscious of your existence beyond the body. And it's just an interesting point, I think, especially because I grew up in the 60s, this strengthening the bonds that free you. There's a kind of romantic idea that if you do whatever you want at any time, then you're free. But actually, if you subscribe to higher principles, there it is. Yeah. Is that it?
Yes. If you go to vaisheshikadas.com and scroll down, you will see the 21-day fitness challenge section. You can click on Learn More to visit that page. And there it does have the description of the challenge itself. And for each of the body, mind, and spirit, for each of those sections, the various activities that you can perform and how to perform, it's described. In addition, there is a tracker. So if you go scroll up, you can see, you can submit you can keep track of your activities using the submit progress online. So if you click on it, the tracker will come where you can enter your email address, your name, and then for each of the activity, if you're performing on a given day, you can check them that you completed it, etc. And once you're done, you can submit it. And once you submit it, you'll receive an email uh, listing everything that you have entered for the given day. And there'll be an edit response button there, which you can use to again go back and next day if you want to resubmit. So this way you can track your activities on a daily day. It's for the entire month of July. It's open right now, and you can pick any 21 days, contiguous 21 days to build a particular habit if you want to improve on mind, body, or spirit level. And you can also see the various progress being made by everyone else. You can see that the tracker dashboard is here. So various like Lynn, Bjorg, Josh, of course, they all are participating, and their scores of the body, mind, and spirit. The total score is described. They also are very actively maintaining their gratitude journal, so which is also an activity which leads to content fulfillment and happiness. So yeah, you can take a look at them, and you will see many ways in which others are doing it, so that you can also follow. Anything else you wanted to add as well?
No, I recommend it, and it kind of goes to this. It definitely goes to this principle of strengthening the bonds that free you. I have some friends who started an organization, and it's one of their, that's their kind of mission statement, and it sounds paradoxical, but actually in yoga, there's a way in which when you have some way to regulate your senses to bring them to this higher state of awareness, you're following some regimen, but actually it gives you more freedom. Very interesting. So, oh yeah, good. Okay. Now, mantra meditation is the cornerstone of bhakti yoga. The sound is said in the Vedas to be the first element, and it's creative. And there are different levels of sound. There's sound that is struck sound. There's unstruck sound. That is sound that actually already exists there within the chakras in your energy centers within the body. And there's sound that descends from a higher level. This is called the avatar of sound. And when the avatar of sound comes down, it opens a channel for you to rise above the three dimensions that we're used to and enter into the fourth dimension, which is the non-material realm. And the mantra itself is potent. It's passed down through a chain of teachers over many millennia, and it has a formula-like effect. In other words, you see a formula. When the formula is intact, then it has an effect like a solvent. There are particular solvents that take stains or goo that got stuck, and they just unlock them miraculously, seemingly. So similarly, the mantra is like that too. It's like a solvent that can unstick us from lower stages of awareness. So then the first mantra that I'm passing down, which I received from my teachers, is called Nitai Gauranga. It's the two avatars of Nitai and Gauranga. And they remove all obstacles. And also, this is related to the principle of Vishwambar that I mentioned earlier, the nourisher, that the energy that we feel that I'm being nourished, my heart's being pumped for me, the oxygen's coming in. Everything in nature, if you sit there and watch how intuitive it is, it's all coming from this higher power, the intelligence that's there in nature, nature's IQ. It's being sustained, nourished. So this is Nitai and Gauranga, the two avatars. And so in your mantra meditation, if you take some time to sit and repeat the mantra, you'll notice the vibration itself is uplifting. So let's just try it a few times together. And again, you can sit in a relaxed but alert way. And then I'll say the mantra, and if you'd like, you can say it along with me, and we'll try it 5 times. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. That's a very nice mantra to start with to lead into the next mantra, which is called the Maha Mantra. And it's got 3 words, Hare Krishna Rama. And this is a mantra that as you chant it, you'll notice that it attracts the mind. And as it's doing that, it has a way of giving spiritual strength and purifying the consciousness. So I'll say the mantra 5 times, and you can say it along with me if you wish. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And you're not limited to 5 times. Feel free to experiment with these mantras in your own time, in your own sacred space. And you'll notice that mantra meditation, the resonance of the mantra, will uplift you. And now, because we're over the hour time, which is my special penchant in life, going over, we'll just see if there's any last reflections, if anybody wants to reflect on anything before we sign off for the week. The sound of silence is also beautiful. Anything that you're taking away from today, that like a fragment, a word, a concept, a main thing that that you heard or heard somebody say that you think might assist you during the week? JM, you offer something.
I was just contemplating about the quote you said, that we all are in a state of unnatural happiness. That is, we all are assuming things, but there is an alternate reality. So that's what we have to focus on to be in a steady state. Lavanya just put a message on chat. Very refreshing to be part of this hour. Quite a few people are happy to be part of this hour. This is like an oasis between the desert, where you just come in, refresh before you go back to the desert, I guess.
Okay, so we can remember Komaru. Trouble comes from being boxed up, but we're not obligated to be in the box. Our consciousness, we can free our consciousness. Thanks, Justina. Thank you very much. I'm so happy to see you here. Okay, and I'll be counting the days till I see you next week. And if anybody wants to unmute and say, hey, then now's your chance.
This is just
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Sadhana. Okay, everybody. Thank you very, very much, and keep the transcendental vibration going. And please be happy and safe. Bye for now. Thanks, JM.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Bharat.
Bye, Josh. Thank you.
Bye, Josh.
Bye. Have a great week.